The room is full. I'm happy for two things today. First of all, that all people that are in the space are in the same room, so we won't have problems. Hey, your mic is off. We're not sure. We're going to be sure. Everyone is here. People are happy. A number of people have been wanting to meet are also here in this room. But importantly, I want to thank Absa for doing a WealthWise series. It's good to inspect what to expect. If you you want people to bank money, so you want to find a way that they start getting the money in. So we have, like I said, we're full of. Today we're going to talk about wealth. I don't want to get so much time into the introductions because we have so much to talk about in very little time and have so many minds in here. Actually, we have so many teachers. You guys, your teacher, pastor, your teacher. Everyone is a teacher in this place. You might need a fire extinguisher during sometimes when we are talking. We are talking about wealth today. Wealth. And not real wealth. We were talking about intergenerational wealth. And then, of course, later we shall talk about a very, very controversial topic that is black tax. Some people have paid more in black tax than they will ever give you RA.
Yeah.
We shall come back to that. But to navigate that conversation in the room, I want to first start with, by the way, I'm not going to follow age, by the way. But I'll start with Mr. Hassan Kasiji. I'm very happy to have you here, former director Interpol, former AIGP. Do you know I don't know so many AIGP? You're the only guy I know. You're a celebrity retired.
At one time, they thought there was only one AIGP, and that was Hassan Kasiji.
How is retirement?
Retirement is good. It's good. It's a mindset, and I can tell you my mindset positive.
I'm very happy to hear that. And then the next, I would like to introduce, ladies and gentlemen, we have in our midst one of the network pastors at Worship Harvest Ministries. I am very glad to introduce one of the greatest teachers of our times, Pastor Beatrice. How's Pastor Jeremy?
And he's listening.
You also a certified coach. I want to understand, is there any kind of pressure that we expect that you shouldn't be suffering?
What do you mean?
Because you're a certified life coach, we think you should have your life together. Do you ever think that people don't think that you should have more people problems? Yes.
Of course I have problems. I think that's what makes you a good coach. You can only speak from a place of experience.
Yes.
I have pressure.
So coaches are people who have suffered the most.
No, they're just people who can give you principles and practices. The storms of,
Very happy
but they're also learners.
I'm very happy to have you here on this desk. And then the next we're having is Helen Chirunda, another teacher in the room. I'm happy to have you. How is work at Team Port?
Team Port, our niche is teams. I've always thought that anyone who is doing something, you started something, you'll need help.
Yes.
You cannot be the clean of your office. You cannot be the receptionist. You cannot deliver the tea. And those are the simple jobs in there. But even you have the tougher one. You need an accountant, you need an administrator. So that team is what we picked on.
Your first degree is in insurance.
Yes.
I need to understand, is it your heart of Muidibi or what point? At what, by the way, is it still helpful in what you do right now?
Very.
The fact that you're
Very.
insurance professional?
Very. Which one should I start with? It's helpful because I've been privileged to train the very people who have invited us here, Absa. Bank assurance. Nice. I was among the first lecturers of bank assurance at the institute. So insurance has its story. I'm part of Women in Insurance because of that. We are sort of legendary because we came from that side.
Now I go to Mr. Chen Edward. Yes, the gentleman we have here and the fourth panelist is the director legal at Absa, company secretary. The interesting thing about you guys doing law, I think the only two professions where you still get paid even if the client is losing. That is law and doctors. They give you a dead body and an invoice. But you also you've been practicing for 15 years. How has it been? I mean, how has it been crossing from choosing to be around practicing around us? Because I know you've been back as well. Yes. So how has been practice around financial institutions?
So thank you very much, Uncle Mo, for the introduction. Yes, it's a very interesting profession and the work that we do. I've been a children advocate for more than 20 years. We finished university in 97. No? I don't know where you were at the time. And as you know, we had to go to LDC, 98, August, practicing. So working for banks, when I came back to Uganda, about 12 years and a half ago, I worked for a bank, different. But basically, we ran a small law firm within the bank to support the bank. So then I moved to Absa, coming to 5 years now. And so I did a team there of the lawyers and also company secretary. It's a very interesting, it's a vicious cycle. It's continuous. It's very interesting in many respects. You don't really, everybody comes to you for some support. It's critical. Because if you have a weak legal team, financial institutions, as you know, financial institutions are highly, highly regulated. So you need to guide the board, you need to guide management, you need to involve yourself in transactions. And for a bank of our size, you also do cross-border transactions.
Yeah.
All over the world. And really, it's very interesting, very, very enjoyable kind of.
Transaction should be very easy. Really, it's just that if you have your money, I give it to you. But these guys try to make it complicated so they can get paid. But I'll come back to that. I want to dive straight into the conversation today. And that is intergenerational wealth. Everyone, we're all trying to acquire wealth. And wealth doesn't want to be retained for some reason. For the people listening in on the X space, I want to first ask, what is your understanding? Like you explained to a 5-year-old. And as you answer, by the way, there's something you said, Pastor Beatrice said that we're not on air at the time. She said the best way to teach is through example. We can also touch the part of if you can teach wealth if you've not experienced. If you've not experienced it.
Find another example.
But I want to first understand your understanding of intergenerational as we try to achieve it. At least some of us will stop at the definition, but at least it will help us point us to that direction where we go.
So thank you, Mo, and I'm sure there's no very precise definition, but intergenerational. From one generation to the other. Really, you create value, wealth, anything of financial value, which can be passed on from your generation to the next generation. That's my basic understanding of it. Literally, what it is that today I acquire business, I start a business, I acquire land, I develop myself, make all these investments, which produce wealth. And it could also mean not just... It may not just mean material stuff. The values are also wealth. Wisdom you pass on to the next generation is also wealth. So when we build this wealth, be it physical or invisible wealth, we pass on to the next generation. But then that generation should also be able to hold it on and try to pass it on to the next one. Such that if you look at us, just look at it this way. You start with nothing. Your parents possibly give you education, which is wealth. You use that wealth, you use that education to get a job first. From there, you get paid, and you acquire land. You invest in things which bring value. Okay, you start a farm, start a business. Thereafter, maybe our parents were not as wealthy as us. Okay. But they make those sacrifices for us, hoping that we could be able to be better than, have a better start in life. So you go to school, they sacrifice. Many of our parents have really had to give everything. You acquire that. Of course, if you have a family, you also then say, how do I make sure that they get even a far better start than I did?
So are you trying to say that our parents' generation wealth they passed on to us, are you putting education in that bracket?
I think yes. I really think so. Because remember I said it is a physical or values, the skills that you get. It may well be education and informal education. Many people who are very wealthy but have never gone and gotten formal education, gone to a class. But they know how to create wealth, and pass on. So imagine you are in a community which keeps cattle keep, and you grow up, they teach you how to herd the cows, how to treat, how to tender them, or an agricultural kind of background. Then you pass on that knowledge. Then you're able to, that multiplies next among your children, your relatives. In Teso, for instance, I remember when I was young, there was something called where they would say, let's help the neighbors. So if you had 50 cows, you say, let's give them a cow and a bull for 5 years. By the time they finish, they already have 5 or 6 cows. They return back. They also do that the next one. So that the whole community somehow is impacted. Of course, with problems we've gone through, that came to an end, but I'm sure it was a fabric of that society of how to create wealth, not just for your family, but for the neighbors and for the community, and then pass on to the whole community is impactful and able to. Because there's nothing wrong with acquiring wealth in the right way. I must put that caveat in there. There's nothing shameful about pursuit of success, pursuit of wealth in the right manner. Of course, the opposite, because that is normally the beginning. But I don't want to dominate that, but that's my kind of definition of what I hope I've given.
No, that very insightful. The reason why I hinted on the education part, because I find so many of people say my age that keep saying, we went to school. But we understand wealth to be, like, for example, if everything I'm doing right now, I'm like, I tell my kids, I'm like, man, you guys, I take you through school, peace, you bye. I think in this, probably, I don't know, am I right to think that in this time and age, it might not be enough? Probably there might be a trust fund or what, I don't know. Which things probably in the next generation, they won't care, they just want to spend it. So I don't know if there is any, maybe also to add to his opinion on what intergenerational wealth can be. Coming to Mr.
Yeah, I would like to say that he really explained it so well. Yes. When you have wealth, and I can tell you, even in our traditional systems, our parents had wealth. Our parents had land. Our parents had cows. Our parents, there was also community sense of ownership. So you find, like I come from Ankole, you have like 100 acres all belonging to a certain community. It may be a clan. I'm a Musiaba. So it is like, but Siaba clan have this kind of... So the kind of wealth that they generated, now, intergenerational wealth is looking ahead, okay? Pass on this kind of wealth from one generation to the other. And so they had so many ways of passing over this generation. And I can tell you, one of them is education that you talked about. If you educate your child, probably even if you don't give, real assets, okay, you've given that person wealth. I know later we are going to talk about the black tax and that kind of thing. So you've provided wealth to this person. I also know that when you were young and about to marry, your father would pay dowry. Probably these are 5 cows or something like that. He's passing on that to you. But they also had to give some portion of land to you. The purpose was start a family, generate wealth yourself. And many other things that we're talking about. Okay? So even at that level, you're right, it was that. It may not be physical assets as we're talking about. It can be something different. But of course now, the kind of intergenerational wealth that we're talking about, we now have worked. You have real estates that you can begin to think about passing over to your children and your children's children. We're talking about the trust that you're talking about. Some people have put their wealth into a certain trust. Sometimes they call it families, a family kind of looks like a company, but it's kind of, trust, and they put everything. And they have even made every member of the family like a shareholder. So you find you own some shares. I have experience of that because when I retired, I went and formed a company and we started a business, and each one had a certain share in that company. That is also a way of transferring wealth. So there are various methods of doing that. But I think the most important thing in intergenerational wealth is not looking at your children. The Bible says, Proverbs 13:22,
Yes.
that a good person,
A good man.
leaves his inheritance to his children's children. I want you to mark that word.
Wait, let me write it down. You said what? Proverbs?
Proverbs 13:22. A good man leaves an inheritance on his children's children. Now,
So the people who just say bye. They're not good.
that inherently is talking about intergeneration wealth, children's children.
Children's
So
children.
you're looking a little bit ahead. And modern times, I have seen people have their companies, big businesses, and what do? They bring their children. You are going to be general manager. You're going to be purchasing whatever. You're going to do this. In short, you're educating your children. It's one thing to pass over wealth to your children, but I think it is more important for them to realize and understand why you are passing over that wealth. I know very many people of my age and above my age who have passed on their wealth to their children. These children didn't know what it took to be able to amass that wealth, and they are looking at it. And by the time you understand, they have sold that.
Yes.
Just to add,
Yeah, sure.
if you are not part of something,
Yes.
there's no sense of ownership. You don't find value in it. So that involvement of saying my son is the managing director of this, that, is a way of making sure that you have an attachment, a relationship with it. Then you value it as well. And so when the time comes that you are then able, and you contribute, so you can say, this is what we build as a family. But importantly, Ms. Hassan Hafande was talking about how to transfer. Before you transfer, we must create it.
You must create the wealth.
We must
don't
create-
mix
Yes.
processes.
Let's try to create it. How do we create it? Because many people have talents. And Pastor here will advise us that
Yes.
there were those servants who said, I'll give you 2, 1, I think 3 talents, I can't remember them. And when the master came back, and the first one said, I know how wicked you are.
So
He
I kept what you gave me, and
And
here it is.
because I know it's here. Fool. I said, oh, so you did that. Thank you very much.
Even
The
the
servant.
shall be taken away from.
Then even that was given to him was given
That's
to the others.
wealth creation.
We have talent. God has given us. Oh, nature, if you don't believe in God, God has given us his talents. And we have to apply those gifts to be able to create wealth, not just for ourselves, because ultimately, when you create that wealth, the entire community is impacted. Hassan just told us about how they set up a company. It's employing already 400 people. You understand how many families that wealth, that innovation that you created is impacting? Then in 4 years' time, 10, 20, 30 years, Hassan is gone and is lost. And then the family is back to zero. Whereas it shouldn't be. Because he's created that value, not only for himself, but also for his family. There should be a mindset which that after me, it continues beyond me. I guess we have to discuss how then do you
Exactly. And I wanted to come there. How do we...
But Uncle, before you go there, I feel like you touched on something that's very critical
Yes.
for the majority of the people listening to our generation. You talked about education and you questioned if it is
If it
wealth.
makes-
and it's
if it makes the cut.
a big question, trust me. Because many young people now in their 20s and earlier, they think that education is no big deal. They're looking for ways to get rich quick. They're looking for something that's quicker, that gets money in my hand. They're thinking, is education anything? And I thought, can I tell you a quick story? I promise it will be quick. By the time I was 10 years old, both my parents had died. And they died back to back. My father died when I was 8, my mother died when I was 10. And then my family picked us up. We were 5 children, distributed us. And the one thing they all gave us, my aunties and uncles, God bless them, they gave us one thing: education. My dad did not leave much. And in fact, a few days after his death, we were moved out of the house. Everything changed. I keep thinking, I thank my uncle who took me home to this day, who I consider a father, because I keep telling him that, you see, the thing, I think Afande mentioned a little bit earlier, that it's about changing, it's your children's children, because multi-generational wealth is about children's children. It's to look beyond the person. If my relatives had not taken us to school, I can tell you, Uncle Mo, I would not have met my husband, who was an educated man.
Yeah.
Our children would not have the life they have now. So what happened in my uncle taking care of me? He took care of my children by giving me an education.
Yeah.
Because education, you may not look at it as wealth immediately, but it's a platform for wealth creation. Yeah. It's what you do with the gift that you're given, platform. Right? Yeah. It's the platform. It's the foundation. It's like coming to a house. And recently, my husband and I built our first home. And when you came before the home was complete, you saw a foundation, and someone told you the amount of money that was in that foundation, you'd think, there's no house here. Yeah. But without that foundation, we cannot go high. You know, it dictates how far we can go. It dictates if we can do 2 stories, 3 stories, or just one bungalow. So you will look at an education right now and say, what's the point? And I believe in education, because I'll tell you another story. There's a friend of mine who who took on the maid's daughter. And the maid's son, actually, educated him, because this lady could not go to school. She'd never been to school. She thought, what can I do to change her life? Took the son on, took him to school. The boy was so brilliant, went on up to master's level. One of the best days of my life was being there to see them get married. He married a fellow graduate. That boy would have been a house help. Let me tell you, that's children's lives changed. Yeah. Education is a game changer. And I want the young people who are listening probably are playing with education, thinking it doesn't matter anymore. It's just a piece of paper. Where is the cash? Let me tell you, education can completely alter the course of your life. Yeah. It can be the difference between stopping a poverty lineage for an entire generation. Like that young man in that house helps home. He has changed the story, because from him now, he's married from a home where they were probably not formally house helps. Those children who are coming out are going to have a different story, different mindset. They'll have different dreams and how they look at life. Why? Education, my friend. My father and mother did not leave us lands and houses.
Yes.
We will have the honor of leaving our children something more than education, but the foundation of their lives. Because education is not just a piece of paper. It's a change of mind. It's ability to think. It's being able to network. Because in school, you get networks of people. It changes your life. So those of you who are listening, who, as you heard Uncle Mo speak, some of you, I know you are like, yeah, education, it's not wealth. Let's talk about wealth. Education is part of the wealth creation story, and it is able to move wealth from one generation to another and to completely alter the story.
And to stay with you, Pastor Beatrice, there's a friend of mine was talking to me sometime and told me, the kind of money we earn in Uganda does not create wealth. This is what he said. You have to make a very, very difficult decision. Either to create wealth, intergenerational wealth, that's something to pass on to your children, or you have fun now and your children take care of themselves.
You can do both.
They say that with the money we make in this country, you can't do both.
Uncle, can I add? Sure, no, I wanted the part of the non-physical assets. Sure, and when she brought out the network, it's something that I was holding on to. Most people forget that these virtual things, like we're talking about education, because when someone doesn't see your degree, it's like virtual. Yeah. Networks. Yes. And the networks, we keep talking about them. We think just because you know an MD of a bank, that's the only network. No. Even in the village, when you know a guy who knows how to farm.
I know Edward. He just says hi.
Hi. So, you know, that's
a whole director.
I was thinking, and the best example I usually have, I worked with Minister of Health. Traditional midwives. Oh. A long time ago, before any of us was born, women were giving birth. So someone learned by accident. Push, then bring hot water. So now, Minister of Health had a challenge at a certain point that they had now to train them the modern, because they couldn't do it. They can't get to everyone in every village. But that small network of midwives, these are real powerful people in those villages. Hanging out with them, you learn. So someone would get wealth by knowing your auntie, or that's the girl they were sending to get the water, peeped in the room while the lady was giving birth. So the next generation, she was the one now the midwife in that village. Now that meant that she was earning money, even if it wasn't formal education, but she earns money because she was in a network of midwives. So sometimes our kids, we send them to this school. Some of us sacrifice. You cannot even afford. You borrow to pay fees. And this child just thinks, well, I'm in this school because dad, mom can afford. And they forget these are the very same networks you use. So my quick example was I went to Chitande Primary School. My dad was a lecturer at university. I come from people who are educated. And I remember someone, this was a story from my aunt who said, we asked your mom why you are taking your kid to an expensive, Chitande was then the primary schools. And she said, my kid is going to study with ministers' kids. And I have a list of all the kids from our head of police, Fonji, those are kids I sat with, Katuramu, all those, they're kids. So me when I'm seated here, when I'm calling, come on, the head of
Sorry, I mean, the people are just saying.
Officer Etima, those are the kids I was saying, the ambassadors' kids. Yeah. We had them. So when I'm seated here and I'm calling one of my friends, Etima's daughter, everyone says, but like how? You're not rich. Like, how come you know Etima's daughter? But it's because we were thrown into that space. So network is also another way of building wealth. So these kids of ours should know that it's not these things we are living on.
Helen, I want to draw into your experience.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone that got into this room, you got yourself into having to talk about your personal life.
Yeah.
What has your journey been like? What are you seeing? What are you seeing in different practices of wealth creation in the past, growing up, and what probably the people that raised you did, and what you're doing now, and how is that journey like?
Mine is a typical hustler. Let me put it that way.
Everyone listening
Yes.
is really, yeah.
And my hustling is, when you say typical, you don't look it, but you're going through it. And that's what half the people out there are. But me, day one, when I left university, my parents were all gone. And I was earning 150,000. But what my mom had left us an unfinished house, land. It was a small portion in Ginger. I picked it up. And when I picked it up with everything she left behind. Now, for her generation, she had created something for me. At least I'm not going to sleep out. I was lucky I got a job. And the way I got this job is through networks. You know how I got my first job? I went through my mom's things. I came back and I was going through, those days they didn't have phone books, so they used to write their phone numbers. So I used to remember, we grew up at Makerere University. So there are people who are ministers. Now, we used to keep their metal cases in our house. Why?
Okay.
Because they could not go back with the suitcase. You know, term ends, and then carrying it back to Iganga, to Ntare is a lot of transport. So we used to have a room where I would keep. So Dad would say, carry so-and-so, carry Hassan didn't come, but some of his friends. So we used to keep these suitcases in there. So then I started saying, who is Hassan? It's not police. So I see the number. I started calling them. Network. Yes. That is how I started. And allow me to mention the name and let him rest in peace. Sevanachis. Yes. My dad has a generation of the former Bank of Uganda. Those are then Mr. Kasekende, the deputy, who was deputy governor. Yeah. Now, I said network. I called an uncle who knew him. And he says, but I can, you need insurance. He said, and you don't have a job? No. And then, of course, don't calculate my age, but Nile Hotel was now, Serena was then Nile Hotel.
Oh, you get it.
Right? So do the math.
We already know your age.
Nile Hotel.
So I sat there. My journey was, I sat there, and he called him. And someone was saying, you mean he has a degree? No, there's no one in the country with degrees. He said, there are students who have come back, and they actually have insurance degrees. He said, come tomorrow. Gave him the actual manager then. I started working. It wasn't about Godfather thing where they're putting you in a place where you don't know. I had the papers, but I had to sit in this little book and find that number. Got in insurance. The story is very long, but it was through a network. The wealth my mother left me was when I was carrying those suitcases, if I wasn't part of the carrying the metal cases when these people were young, I wouldn't maybe even remember that there was so and so who is important. So I have gone through, carried whatever I might generational wealth that I've created. It has its challenges because we share it with the family. But I think where I started from is what they left me with.
You know, I like how practical the conversation is going for the Ugandan setting.
Yeah.
That the matter is ordinarily all we have to give.
Yeah.
Then the other thing we have to give, sadly, I came to this conversation thinking you guys are going to talk about where they keep the money, so we just go and pick up the bags and we stop. And this thing ends like in 20 minutes. But now I'm hearing, go to school, go to school, go to school. Now that's at least cutting, probably something everyone on the X space already knew. Then the other thing that is connection.
Yeah, connections.
The friends of your parents, the friends you've met in class, that's what you have.
Call
and
them,
probably that
find
is
them.
one of the things that you're going to pass on
well.
to your kids. Social engineering.
Uncle Mo, I think that is a very, very, very relevant and important issue. Right now, I talk to so many young people. I coach so many young people. So many people I call daughters and sons on X and Y. And one of the things that I think is in Uganda is people who are privileged a little bit, the assistant inspector generals, the doctors, the lawyers in banks, and all that. Young people are moving up and down. They don't know where to go. They don't know who to speak to. So they choose certain people. They write to us in DMs. Mr. Kasinje, I did this. Now I went here. Would you be knowing someone? And there is this kind of thing that they don't want to talk to anybody. Don't come to me. Yeah. They if you go to their offices, they will shut you. They will shut you out, and you will not be able to see these people. I think multiplying intergeneration wealth in this country needs someone to touch someone. Talking about education, parents have given education to their children. Some of the children here do not have money. Do not have their parents. Okay, they are finished. They don't have the jobs. They can't find the jobs. I'm now an employer. I employ about 400 people in my company. And I can tell you, I look into their eyes and I can tell. So I just only want to say, give an opportunity to someone, and that person, in one way or the other, is going to pull another person. Yeah. It's going to pull, someone else. But we want to protect that and have our own people. And even do not tell them where these opportunities are. And I think I picked it from what she said. Where are the Savannas now?
Right.
Who are the Savannas now? Okay? Yeah. Who are those people in Uganda who will look beyond this boy's political lineage or where he or she comes from? And give an opportunity. So when you're talking about this subject of intergeneration wealth, I think we can pick a leaf from what she says. The Indian community in this country. Me, I was amazed. You go to buy a car, you find they are an Indian, and he's telling you, my uncle, my father. They are not even related. But everybody is my uncle. Everybody is my brother. But for us, we are locked ourselves in our walls. And that kind of thing. Yeah. I think it is something that we must utilize.
Isn't that part of what we've lost in our culture? Because culturally we are very interconnected, very communal people. But I feel like we've picked up a very westernized and anti-African way of living. Because the thing you're describing is not how we are. It was on the village, everyone took care of everybody. Everyone got opportunities for everyone's child. My grandmother, every time you went to the village, you found new children who you did not know. She had picked up. She didn't even know the parents when I was at school. I brought them. That's how, of course, we're going to talk about back tax and everything. But at the core of who we are is that communal element. And I think part of intergenerational wealth is passing on our value systems. Yeah. Like like being communal. And I think that's something we are fighting against. You see, you only realize that you need community when you need opportunity. But when it is you on the other end and are you communal right now? Because sometimes we are blaming the people in the big office. But it's our generation, the 30 years and below, that have become very anti-community and until they need the community. So I think part of our generational wealth creation focusing on our values and our traditions and culture that keep the wealth going.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are they?
In our country, hard work, is it still at the very forefront of what we do?
It's
Honesty,
a value, but we're not doing it.
integrity,
Endangered.
Yeah.
hard work, sacrifice,
Respect.
standing out for other people.
Empathy.
Do we praise? Do we praise and look for those we know actually not living upright lives?
Yeah,
Do we
that's what
look at them and say, "I want to be"? You earn 2 million, but you're driving a car of 150 million.
But
Do we? What are those value sets? Okay.
even
So
Jesus
we
turned
have-
water into wine.
We have to go back and look and say,
Yes.
value system. Is it the easy way? Is it the right way? You hear about frauds of different levels.
Yes.
Will that sustain us? I don't think so. I think then you go back and look at what are we passing on to the next generation in terms of values. Hard work. There's no shortcut. You have to work
I want
and smart.
I want to interject right there,
Please,
Edward.
yes.
We have a problem, and so many people are listening on this space. When we start getting a little bit of money, we say to buy cars. Some people go buy. He has pieces of land. He has a land in Bulindo, and buy. We have a problem in this generation of being rich broke people. Let me explain that. Someone has a car, costs 60 million, has some plots of land in a few places, and then their child gets sick and they need 2 million. They need to do a car wash. In the perspective of the bank, what practices, what are we losing? How is the bank maybe helping to make sure, I don't know, is this, because I think I've had the conversation of people should first take care of cash flow, I don't know. Yeah, but we have a big problem of people who have assets that don't have money. There's that. Because there are things that we have cultivated into people's minds that, hey, wealth means brick, mortar, and what, you know? Wealth means you must have some, I have about what I have. I mean, she just said they put so much land in the foundation, you know? Plus, now there's definitely probably a house and stuff. And that's rich. But, okay, I don't want to speak for their bank account, but ordinarily, so many of us, we are broke and have all those things. How, on the side of financial institutions, are people helped to plan better? Is it the right question? Yeah.
I think if I was to go back to school and design a curriculum, financial literacy should be compulsory. I said, can you hear me? All right. So I was saying to you that people know financial literacy. There are even people who are highly educated but don't understand financial literacy. It is not taught at schools. You understand? You've got to understand how to make money and how to make money work for you and how to keep it. So, for instance, and I guess we're talking about how to create generational. I'm not the richest man in the world by any means, I'm sure. But the point is, if you create streams of income which create value for you, you create things which create income for you. But when I was growing up, people who had cattle, who had land, they never struggled paying school fees at all for their children.
Right.
You'd always see that family, their children were educated at the very end. And they would be just, when school fees come, someone is selling just one car and able to take the child to school and complete school, or they're able to acquire extra wealth as a result of that wealth. So I think that it's not just about banks. Banks have a role, but banks are businesses as well. You understand? You assess somebody, but there are assets which are long-term, but there are assets which generate revenue for you. So someone says everybody is building rental apartments if you can afford.
I am telling you, in no time, everyone is going to have rentals.
But what is the population of? We just had a census.
Yes.
What's the possibly 75% of Ugandans are below the age of 30.
35.
Do you understand? And most of them are entering the market. They're earning 1 million shillings, 2 million shillings, 500,000 shillings. So there is an opportunity there. You understand? So, and that consistently generates revenue for you, cash flows. You find you have someone, and of course the reverse is also true. People have land and they don't have cash flows. But the cash flows are so important because You can't, when you fall sick, and when you need to feed your family, you need to be able to see something generating wealth, generating revenue, cash flows for you, such that you can be able to invest in the education, invest, buy other things, take people to hospital. But if you don't have, what happens? You're going to sell that piece of land and make sure that but then the disease possibly is chronic, and that is gone. That ends you. So it's a very intricate, but banks are there to help. Yes, they provide credit for a price. You understand? But ultimately, people borrow to marry a second wife. Yeah. People borrow to buy a TV.
That's a different podcast.
So
we're going to come back to that.
But it's a business, you see. So it is to have a plan, to have goals, to have things you want to achieve and write them down and try to work. You may never achieve 100%, but at least you're on a path. And if you fail, for goodness sake, many people fail, but you start again. Because you have no option but to start again. So I don't know whether I've answered your question.
You have, and I think majorly that people can reach out to the bank because the bank is ready to help. I'm going to come back to you later about transferring wealth legally.
Okay.
Yeah, things, wills and stuff. But I want first to come back to maybe person and everyone. You see, I don't know if you've heard of the saying "Obugaga Sukutereka."
What a bad saying.
We're telling people that if you want to be wealthy and you're getting your salary, then you might take off 30K and keep somewhere.
What's the fence?
There's no so I want to ask, are there see, they say we are 80% our habits.
It's true.
Are there habits that you can mention that whatever you earn, it really comes down to it? I was speaking to a friend and he told me we all have the same goals. The difference comes in the preparation. It was like when Usain Bolt was going to run 100 meters, everyone, their goal was to win 100 meters. Yeah. But they didn't prepare. You all know there's a time you fail to make it through that. Yeah, when you were just starting out. Yeah. So there is preparation.
Back, yeah.
So I want to speak to practices, habits.
Uncle Mo, I believe that wealth doesn't come accidentally. Is a come, is a go. Wealth is intentional. You create wealth, you multiply it, you preserve it, you bequeath it, you pass it on. And somebody who's taking over that wealth does the same thing or better. So that wealth regenerates and grows bigger. There are certain habits that we must be intentional about. Everyone must be intentional about that. Number one, if I begin to work, if I have just gone to the job market like I was, because I put my picture and I see 35 years ago when I started to work. I think number one is where do I want to be in 10 years? There is a lot of planning there. Where do I want to be in 20 years? I have a family, I have formed a family. And I think many young people, I don't want to speak as if I know them better now, but I think even when they go to marry, they want to have a woman, they want to stay with them, and that kind of thing. But the question is, where do you want to be? What are your plans? What are your dreams that you want? If you have them, I want to tell you it becomes a value. It becomes a habit that you are going to create wealth and you are going to stay with that wealth. Number two is about our discipline. The kind of discipline that we have, and that's where some of those words come from. Some of the
wealthy people are very indisciplined people in terms of, like, maybe ruthless. They have bad manners.
I can tell you that the 5 to 10 years of my work, the money I was getting, some was going into black tax, which I'll talk about that. But the money I was getting, I was with the boys. We go here. The other day we were in Ginger. The other day we were where, and you sit and drink. But then you wake up later, and you remember recently I said maybe 6 months ago, something like within a year, that can we save 100,000? Is it possible that someone can save 100,000? I was not being, posing, to show people.
Sure, yeah.
But I can tell you that the money we get it and we spend it. Yes. That's why you hear and say, make your kamane, let me go and eat my kamane. In fact, these days they say, kulia kashi, sijit, whatever. There is vibe that goes with that. That is number two. The other thing is, how do you make money? You make money and you save the money. You save the money, you invest the money. You invest, and you must have an understanding on how you are investing the money. These days, you hear people investing in treasury bills or treasury bonds. Yeah. Let me say financial markets. Yes. There are people who are putting their money in unit trusts. Those are there. Shares. There are people who are buying shares, the ventures and all that. They get some money out of that. There are people who buy real estate in terms of land, and then they wait for 6 months or 1 year. It may be small land somewhere, and you think it is not very important. But you go and buy land 1 million. 6 months, somebody is looking for the owner of that land, and is maybe offering 10 million out of that. So, in short, what I'm talking about is that begin to save. It must be a culture. Whoever is working, whoever is listening to me, there is something that you can save. And I want to tell you that people think that tetufuna sente lwaki mutugamba tusavinge chi. But you just go into their life. You will find they have picked money, they have gone for betting. Esente nebazikubirayo. Zona nezigenda Arsenal bichi kati enaku zino batukuba. So you must be able to do what? To save, a culture of saving, a culture of discipline, to make sure. But then there is also now going to invest wisely. I've talked about that. I think these are important things that you are saying. There are certain things that we can do. Let me say this: if you're a person like me who have children, who are intentional about transferring this wealth to your children, and you are sure you want that this to continue, let's be close to our children. Because their generation is not our generation. Because what they think is not what they think. One time I bought a car, my son looked at it and said, "But Dad, couldn't this car have bought about 4 cars? One for me, one for the other one for the other one." You see, they see the kind of where we put our money and what we want to do. There is no one who is going to multiply wealth when you have not educated your children about that wealth. If you're intentional about it and you say, Kasinje's name, I may have gone, but there's going to be a factory named after me or something like that. Yeah. And then everyone who comes in knows that I have come to make sure that I grow this business. This business must be able to benefit someone else within the family or probably out of the family, and then we must do that. Let's be near our children. Parents now are very far from the children. I have been in the police, and I can tell you, we have a very good statistics of murders in this country because you have refused to die. Sebo oganyo okufa lwakitofa n'ovaawo fenetwale ettaka. You find children conniving with the mother or whatever so that this man can go and then they take this land. What happens after taking this land? They have sold it. Buli omu agabanamu nze mpa akange. Eyo wealth ya mpa akange kubanga ogijje ku whatever, it will never grow. It will never grow. So these families have to come together. I read a story very recently, maybe 6 months ago, 1 year, where a Muzei was very sick. I think they got him from Metiana. And one of the children, they are about 10 siblings, one hid. Omanyi okukweka tata wo abalande babuloko. Yes, because you hide this one. He's very sick. They come to see the parent. You don't want them to see the parent. Go yogera nechitawo. oba wandiise biki oba ekiraamo oba biki gw'obimanyi abalala tebagala kukola ki. So for me I think that when we're talking about wealth, whatever wealth you have must be bequeathed unless you don't care about multiplying your wealth that you suffered with. Kakati abantu abagamba nti nze akasente kange nina okukakola ki nkatuuyanidde, I have been sweating for my money, I must eat my money. I think that should stop. We are not going down there with this money. If you've been able, God has been able to bless you to have this, let us now start thinking about how we transfer this wealth, and this wealth becomes bigger and bigger, and this is how countries develop. Countries develop because people have intentionally been able to develop within their families. That's my take.
Okay, but before you come, the thing I've really understood here is the biggest problem we have in a country about intergenerational wealth is the next generation just wants to sell this stuff. The only thing they can't sell is the education and the connection. Of course, for me, I've seen the only thing to pass down is networks because they can't sell your friends. Yeah. So you pass down connections and education. I think it's causing problems. People are killing parents that are refusing to die.
Let me tell you something. I think, and before I really answer, just to add on what you've said, the challenge is also us. We've made them maybe the part where you say we're not close to our children. We've made them comfortable, sit in a corner. When I die, Dad has a factory.
Right.
That's the challenge. But I want to add something on what can we adapt?
Yes.
He also came up with, when he was saying financial literacy, there's one little thing we always miss out. You save, invest, and all that. But can we, as a system, understand that there are different times and terms of when to do what? What am I saying? You call them short, medium, and long-term goals.
Yes.
You say there has to be cash flow. So most of us, when we are thinking wealth, you run, the moment they give you a loan of 30M, you run and buy land. And it's done. The 30 is done. You've paid the brokers and all that.
You're rich and broke at the same time.
You even resign from your job. Because for me, if you have a short term, I'll give an example. Short term is like a job, salary. 1 million every month, a shop where you earn 20, 40, 100,000 every month.
You can afford food at least.
So when someone falls sick, you need Panadol, those simple little things. We've run out of food. We've made money. Medium is like having a plantation. Every 3 months you have matoke, every 3 months you have potatoes. You won't go hungry. Every 3 months, maybe you have a venue where people once in a while do a wedding. Fine.
Can the unit trust also be medium?
Yeah, units, depend, because unit trusts have different also terms. Because they're those where you insurance, insurance, you'll have an insurance which you can withdraw in 30
Because insurance
years.
you may not be able to institute, but in trust you can withdraw in 48
unit
hours.
trust can even be short term because you can withdraw immediately. Deposit today. So they fall within between medium, but there's cash flow. You must have something to put in.
That's short term.
And then the long term, do the trees, do the house, do
Land.
the land, do a school, So for me, in my experience with these terms, they've really helped me. I don't have much. I'm one of those people, and I'll say it out here, that people actually assume I have more. But I don't have much. But what I've done is, when I was earning this 150, it was my short term, but I used to sell silverfish. And
Mokene.
most of, mokene. Let me call it mokene. My girlfriends who were already...
Because silver makes it look like it's
bougie, bougie is silverfish. Actually, most people keep asking, what is silverfish?
It's valuable, Mukene.
Yes, but now my girlfriends that time would first tell me, but you're going to smell. Wow. But now I wouldn't beg. My skin was looking good. My kids are eating, and everything is. But someone, because when you bring mokene, they don't buy. You give it to someone who buys. It was short term. I sold mokene and underwear, because when I get a salary, it was so easy to buy an underwear at 5,000. And then when I go to office and I meet him like head of legal.
I wish you were sitting in these times now. But
I still do some of those things. Don't worry.
Okay.
Valentine is when I would sell the most. Short term. Medium, I was using my mom's place, so we pick food once in a while. The long term has just started when I earn some more money. But for me to earn and keep and also be able to pass it on, if you don't have these three, short, medium, and you assume that because I made money, I made a deal, these days it's deals. Someone makes 100 million and he'll buy square miles.
I think the biggest thing you've hinted on is for people to have and I think in that order, first plan short term, then go into your mid. If short term is assured, the job is secure. Keep that going, then get into your start feeding the medium until it's solid at a certain level. If that is solid, then start feeding into the long term, which is the third stage. You have something hard.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Hassan has articulated the points very clearly. Discipline is critical. How you live your life, how you conduct yourself, how you set your goals and try to achieve them. We thank God that someone passed the NSSF Act. For those who are working, they are forced to pay to save. And at least at the end of every year, this year I think they paid 11%, 11.5%. But you see, you're forced to save.
Yeah.
And that money is working every day at night. And you're sleeping, at the end of the year, they're paying you 11%. Assuming you have 100 million, that's 11 million shillings. So and you're doing nothing, they're investing it.
Yeah.
When you retire, that money will be available. Now, for instance, some people who are above 45 are saying, we can get my 20%. But then someone says, I want to get 20% to go and buy a car. Whereas they already have a car. I'm not saying a car is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But then you say, I have now the ability to take 20%. If you are someone who is 45 and you've been earning well, possibly you have about 800 million shillings or 500, whatever it is. Then you say, well, if I took, it's 200 million for example, just giving an example. And you say, I've worked for all these years and I have 1.5 billion or 1 billion or 800 million. You take the 20% because NSSF gives you 10% or 11%. You take it to the government bond. It's paying 16.8%.
Yes.
You take it out there, you put that every year, if you put 100 million, instead of getting 10 million, you're getting 16.8. And then compound that every year. You're taking it out. Invariably, by the time you become 65, you have something to fall back into. Someone will take the 20% and go and possibly has never done farming his entire life.
Hey, people start doing things they've not done
and he
there.
goes to put the money there. And so, again, they advise...
Corridors.
Honestly, if you are educated, or even not educated, people, there are lawyers there who are good lawyers. There are many accountants. There are tax people there. For a small fee or a reasonable fee, you will be able to get some guidance on how to apply. The people who know how to do wealth. So we will not become Bill Gates, but at least you're assured of some kind of food, you're assured of paying children's school fees, you're assured of an income every year as you're not doing anything with NSS. But they're investing in real estate, they're investing in companies like Equity Bank. I think NSS owns about 5% of it. Housing finance owned by partly by. And when they make profit, this organization, they pay a dividend. That's why they're able to give us 11%. So discipline. You're earning 1.5. Let me give you an example. You told us to give examples.
Yes.
A few years ago, I was working with colleagues. And they were very young. They were earning 1.2 million shillings. He had a piece of land he bought somewhere in Baton, nice place. I said to him, young man, why don't you start looking to build your own home for your family, small place. I have a 50 by 100. I said, okay. Well, I'm only 1.2. So you've just started. I said, start with the 1.2. So if someone takes a friend for a beer every weekend, or they drink 5 beers, multiply. Then you might say, but why don't you just save 10%? I said, no, I want to build a small business, build ground plus one. And just a few days, he did. And he finished. I said, now, you can now qualify for a bigger facility.
Yes.
Take all of it and then do something. Don't take it to buy a car or buy something. Go and buy another small plot of 50 by 100 and then do something else. And the young man, long story short, he left his job, he's self-sustaining, has a business. Why? It's not like you're positive thinkers. No, I just talk about practical. You have 1.2. Multiplied by 10 is 12 million. Or thereabout. Apply that money for a particular purpose.
Yeah.
When you take that facility and you're using it for the right reason, a good loan, okay, what happens to you? When the black tax is coming, you say, I don't have everything to give you. I can only give you 50,000. because it's dedicated for a purpose, a good purpose. You understand what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
so there are many of these examples. You know, so it's not, as you said, how much is it? You said that the money we have is too little, it's not sufficient. That's what you said.
Yeah, it can't.
Just come on, let me go and chop my money.
Let
me go
it
and
get
do-
chopped.
Yes,
But
by all means, Mr. Kasinje, allocate something to make yourself happy.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
By all means, buy a
that
nice
is
shirt.
it.
Nobody is saying everything you should invest it
I'm
in.
running out of time. I want you to go to transfer of wealth. I don't know. So many of us, first of all, we think maybe it's not our thing. Some people really just have trousers. They don't even fit anyone. But then some people started acquiring a few things, which they also worried might sell soon because you know how life can be. At what point in your life do you start being smart about, I might transfer this? I should have a legal way to prepare myself for, because I have to check out.
So you are alive today.
Is that, people still think when you have a will, it
you
means
are
you're going to
alive
die.
today, you must plan. Okay? The things you must do when you are alive, of course we have to. Yeah? So the first thing, you have acquired the asset, you want to transfer. So in our country, because there are laws which govern how you transfer wealth, how you make sure that your wealth continues if you want it to do. So for instance, and you're going to say it, you said earlier, a will, for instance. There are people who say by 18, right away. I'll tell you a very sad story, and I won't tell you the names. A friend of mine was diagnosed of cancer just 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And she texted me from Aga Khan Hospital and said, I need a will. She'd been working for banks for a long time and acquired a lot of wealth. Okay? She had NSSF. She has 3 children, 4 children, 3 girls, 1 boy. She was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And she told me, I need a will. I said, come, when are you coming back? I sent her a message saying, can we sit down and give me the particulars and I can draft a will for you quickly? So that because it was certain it was stage 4 cancer. Okay, I'll cut it short. Long story short, she said, it seems as if I'm giving up on myself. I said, no, it cannot be that you're giving up. The next time I was called, she was in Kampala Hospital. By 7 in the morning, she was gone. She has kids, she has wealth. And the will helps you to direct where your wealth goes. Now, we have the Succession Act, which of course says if you die in 2 ways, in my view. You die intestate without a will, or you die when you have written your will, detailed will, properly execute, what I call a valid will.
Yeah.
Go to a lawyer, for goodness sake, for a small cost, it will help you, especially when you have assets. So then the children now, the day after she was married, a week after she was married, the sister calls me and says, Edward, she told us you were going to write a will for us. I sent the text messages. She changed her mind. You understand? So you can imagine that situation. I had another colleague, a friend, he told us to give examples. I had another person I advised, a relative, close relative. She was dying. Her husband died about 3 years earlier. She was dying. She had 2 kids, teenagers.
Yes.
Not teenagers, toddlers. And now one has not finished university, the other one is, they had property in Ginger somewhere. So what did I do? I went, I said, your husband, I tell the guy to write the will. He could see. They went to the lawyer quickly, they wrote the will. Come back to this country after about 10, 15 years after she died. And the husband had also died. I transferred it, I get a title, and I converted the freehold for them, and then passed on. They had built a house incomplete, and now they have created 4-room houses in Gingertown, and they're able to generate money from it. And it's taken the girl to the master's degree. She's finished at Nkumba. She's now working, and the brothers, a will is one of the ways in which you can pass on your wealth, and you'd be able to generate. If, however, you decide you die without a will, then the law sets how you distribute the wealth. Yeah. It's not in your hands, in my view. So a wife must take, relatives must lean each dependents. So you're not in control anymore. And of course, in our culture, as you know, almost always, once someone dies, brothers, the cousins, everybody, they're chasing your wife out of the home. They say, we'll take care of the children. Then, of course, there are things like trusts, which, again, this cannot be a discussion about how to create a trust. There's another avenue through which you can seek legal advice. If you have to maintain your wealth, in Europe, for instance, in England, there's something called inheritance tax. You die today, your estate is valued, and the government say 140% in England, for instance, 40%. So you depleted your asset. So rich people, what they do is put these things in other trusts, for instance, and if you want, sometimes people don't sell the asset. The other way, there are several ways. The way you own land, is it joint? Are you tenants in common, or are you joint tenants? That one is again where you need to get a lawyer. There are situations where you die, and then all you need to do is take the title to the land registry, and they cancel the dead person's name. The others remain. That estate does not go into administration. So it perpetuates that. Set up a company. There are several ways, but the best thing to do is to get legal advice, get tax advice, get all these advisors are there on how you can be able to protect.
And some of these guys are really our friends. We usually call and be like, have a small inquiry. We call them a small inquiry.
Yes, well,
then probably the friend sometimes can invoice. Sometimes
final thing. A friend of mine, a colleague of mine, work together. Two clients, friends. One was working for another bank. She was going for an operation, like tomorrow. She ran to us, please, can you draft me a will? Can you imagine? We drafted, she survived narrow. The second one, he said, can I give you details by next week? This is one of my colleagues. And she when he turned up,
yes,
he said, I'll give it to you next week. Next day, she was gone. I mean, and so the family is in chaos. I mean, you don't know how, but please, try to will.
Yeah.
I think what I get from what you said is
several ways.
As early as possible. As it's not.
And if you acquire more wealth along the, you can always add what is called residual asset. You can always determine with that how that is allocated as well, or you can amend and add.
But let the will be in place already,
and let it be valid. The only way
because people think, hey, I have a will, it's bringing death on me. Yet death, you don't have to bring it; it will bring itself.
There's one certainty for all of us here: death has 100% success rate. We will all die at some point.
There's 99 points.
Just something small, but this is the layman's way of doing things.
Yes,
that was it's called you call it a hack. Most of the gentlemen who have like 3-4 wives, the ones who have not had that chaos,
yes,
they give when they marry Helen.
Yes,
the land is Helen Chirunda. It does not add a Mrs. Helen Chiwandoka. So the next person is Annette Naruoga. So when this person dies, everyone is like, okay, we have finished crying. Everyone walk to your what?
Go to the place that has your name.
So the one who are being trained with someone was a legal mind. He said, if you really can't run to this will and people think, can you have your documentation? Another time the lesson was on us women, we need also to be part of it. Some of us women have actually bought these things, but you have never changed it. You don't want to give it to the man, and there's chaos. So when you can also go first. So can we have your documentations clear? Your wife have a paper.
I think the bottom line of this conversation is people need to find legal help. And navigate this because I'm seeing the English started to escalate.
But more.
Yeah.
Our customary marriage allows you to marry well. But if you really want to distribute your wealth among them, distribute it properly. Secondly, we're saying one of the ways in which you can preserve your wealth that you've created is to involve your family. Surely your wife is your family. And surely your children are your families. Make sure. Some people, you're in a bank and someone walks and says, my husband has died. Our title's in the bank. They don't know how much exposure. And then they don't know that they had all these loans that they're never aware of. Or that there are so many assets. So the point is, one of the criteria, I think one of the to be able to grow your wealth and retain it, is to involve your family. Make sure that they know exactly what, because death can happen any point. And even if it doesn't happen, they then can carry on.
And people over worry about Manya, they'll still might think, if the government that has a whole army is stolen from, then what about you? Anyway, I want to get into the next thing that is black tax.